It's been a busy month in our new garden, with beds to prepare, shrubs to prune, planters to build. Here's how I'm starting to take it to the next level. So here it is. The garden stretches all the way back from the 16th century cottage. It's a classic English cottage garden. It's got lots of nooks and crannies, beds and borders, but I think we can add to its glory and make it even more delightful. The garden's divided into lots of different parts, some of which are mini gardens in their own right. This is the pond, complete with ducks. Let me introduce you to Tom and Barbara. Here we can really improve this landscaping. It's been established a long while and it could do with a bit of a revamp, but retaining that cottage charm. The beds at the back there, performing a backdrop from here, but also in front of the seat. So that's got to be quite carefully sculpted. And the area in front of the pond, that too, I think, could be just a little bit more appealing. I don't want to spoil what's here already, I just want to enhance it. Many of you have asked for advice on small gardens. So in this patio behind the house, I want to show you how you can turn it almost into a garden room using containers cleverly, but also it's the entrance to the garden, so it's a kind of multifunction area. Quite a challenge, but I'm looking forward to transforming it. I've also got plans for this shady courtyard as another small garden project. I'll be showing you how even a limited space like this can have real impact. What I love about this garden is the way it complements the house, the way in which it's been softly sculpted. There are no hard edges, there's lots of fraying into trees and shrubs and then lower perennials, the pond with the ducks dabbling. You feel when you walk into this garden that it's a sanctuary, that this is somewhere you would want to be, whatever the time of year, whatever the weather. And that's what a garden, any garden, should be. As you move on down the garden, you pass a set of giant holly bushes to find a whole new other section. One spot that really caught my eye is this. I mean, who wouldn't like to park underneath a lovely gnarled old tree? I think we can do something with it, really. It's just a little bit sad and tired now, isn't it? There are lots of options here. There's a rose that can be trained to scramble up the tree. We could get some more planting around it so that you feel sort of embraced by flowers, foliage and scent. And maybe a bit of sorting out of the seat or even a renewal so that when you do sit down here, it's hugely pleasurable. A feature that links one end of the garden to the other is this pergola. It's absolutely covered in roses. I mean, I can't wait to see this in summer. And then, when you come out the end, you're into a whole new part of the garden. A completely different change of mood, a different feel, more calm, more open. And it's lovely to change mood in the garden. However small, just by turning a corner, the vision is different and the atmosphere feels different. And among these beautifully pruned fruit trees, and all the spring bulbs that are coming up. You feel the arrival of spring here almost more than anywhere else. Coming down here with just fruit trees in grass and old roses and spring bulbs, you feel you could be stepping back in time to when the house was first built. It's just a timeless landscape. I have a new veg garden to play with this year as well. It's smaller than what I've been used to, so I'll be challenging myself to try new things and get the most out of the smaller space. And then finally, we have this. Set in this little bit of meadow, amongst the spring bulbs, roses to come. It's a bit of paradise really, isn't it? In our new garden, there are several good-sized beds and borders, but there's one that I've had my eye on since we got here. This is the bed I'm going to tackle. A bed because you can walk round it. A border tends to be long and thin. So where is it? It's out in the open. South is there, so it gets plenty of light. It's not shaded too much by this magnolia in the centre, which has a crown fairly high off the ground. Now this is a cottage garden. The cottage is just there, thatched, beautiful. You look out and this is the first thing you see. So it's quite impactful, or it should be, and it will be when we've planted it up in such a way that it catches the eye and it's pleasingly contoured. So the first thing to do is to clear the plants out, and you can take all of them. If there were huge ones in here that I knew I would want to put back there, then I would leave them, but I want to clear all this, so just start somewhere. And the great thing about early spring is that stuff is happy to be moved, and it can stay out for a good few days as long as it doesn't dry out, and each of them with a little root ball like that, that's going to be perfectly happy to be transplanted in a few days' time. Stick them in my wheelbarrow and put them somewhere else while I get everything out of here. What you will find is that some perennials grow into one another. Here, a geranium growing into a sedum, and I want to dig both of those out, separate them, and then they can be replanted at a suitable distance. They're both healthy, it's just that they're a bit too close for comfort. All these plants, in a garden centre or a nursery, you'd pay quite a few bob for a plant as big as that. The great thing at this time of year is that snowdrops, which have just finished flowering, can be dug up and replanted. Split them up into smaller clumps like that. You can spread them all over, plant them about 6 inches apart, and look how many you can make out of a clump like that. And I don't have a copper bottom guarantees, but you've got a hugely much greater chance of success by planting them in the green. Some of these clumps are small enough to be left as they are, others are larger, and this is when you can do some divvying up, dividing a large clump like this hardy geranium here into smaller pieces, saving yourself money, covering a larger portion of ground. Now the traditional way, which always amuses me, about dividing perennials like this is that you get 2 forks One's a small fork, one's a large fork, and you push them into the centre of the clump like that, push them right down, and then you push them together. Look at that. The important thing is you don't push too far, because if you do, it's very good at wrapping your knuckles. 1, 2, 3, 4. It hasn't hurt them at all, they really don't mind. It's really rather like cutting your fingernails, there's no pain involved. And as soon as they go back in the soil, and the trick is to get them in there fairly quickly so they don't dry out. But if you've got to prepare the soil, what do I do with them? Stick them on a bit of spare ground in a veg patch, something like that. Just keep them cool and damp, and they'll be happy for several days, if they have to, before they go back in. You will find that in spite of having got all your individual clumps up, the ground itself, if it's been planted for a long while, will be riddled with roots. Now, these need to come out, so it's then a case of going through with your fork and prising them out, using the fork a bit like a sieve, and just, it's not vital they all come out because they're not going to reshoot, but just to clean it up. So I'm doing this in sections, and this is my first clean section of bed. Plants taken out and kept, roots taken out, but now that I've cleared all this, I can use soil improver. I love it, the ground loves it, and these two ducks love it as well. They love what it produces, which is worms and grubs. And are you going to be my friends here, or are you going to be a real pain? Oh, a worm. All yours. There's your lunch. So don't just give it a little sprinkling like that. Be generous. Quite a good dressing over the top, right the way across. And then, if it falls in any clods, you can spread them about in a minute. So a bag, one bag will just about do. Don't waste any of it. Then spread it out fairly evenly, so you've got a layer on the surface all the way over, just making sure it's even to start with, and lightly fork it in. And the thing is, when you start to plant, it will fall in around the roots of the plant itself, just taking care not to damage my peony, and get down where it's going to do some good about the roots. And you know, already I can feel this soil getting so much more propitious for root growth. A poor soil is now gloriously ready for anything to grow in it. I just know that when we put these plants back and work out how we're going to put them in, where we're going to put them, and what we're going to add to them, I know it's going to be fab. So, I've cleared my bed, or part of it. It'll all be cleared eventually. I've enriched the soil. I've taken out some plants that I'm going to put back in again. What I need to do now is to work out how many plants I need to go back in that border. It's so easy to shoot down the garden centre or the nursery and have that, and get back. You haven't got enough of one, and you got too much of another. So try and do yourself a little grid which shows how many plants you're going to need. That way they stand a chance of growing well, and also you'll waste far less money. I've measured up the bed. It's almost round, and it's about 6 metres by 6 metres. And then I've used lines to mark out individual square metres. How many plants to a square metre? It depends, of course, how big they're going to grow. If it's a shrub, 1 per square metre. If it's a smaller perennial, about 4 per square metre. And you can actually mark them in on your grid. Now, I'm going to have taller plants towards the middle. Here's a tree I'm not going to plant right up against the trunk, but nearer the centre of the bed I'm going to put shrubs. Now, one shrub will go in each of these squares here, The geraniums I've taken out, I'm going to put them down here, quite near the front, and all 4 of those will go in 1 square metre. And you suddenly find yourself thinking, oh, I see, I can see now how many plants I'm going to be able to get in. Now, although these single crosses are 1 shrub to roughly a square metre, it doesn't mean that the 4 crosses in a square metre, every square metre has to be a different plant. You can then draw drifts on it because you want to do pleasing shapes. And some plants you may only need 3 of, another you may need 7 of. They go from square to square in a drift. Now, I know this is a bit like painting by numbers, but if you've never done it before, it's a good starting point. It really does work. You'll get the right amount of distance between your plants and you'll get a good sweep of 1 plant in any one place. So I've made my plan, and the first thing to go in are the shrubs. So join me in a future video when I'll be choosing plants to turn this into the perfect cottage garden bed. Now, when it comes to pruning tools, basically you need 3, depending on the thickness of the stem you're cutting. For smaller stems and branches, a sharp pair of secateurs. For branches that are slightly thicker, a pair of loppers. These can take anything up to about 1 inch. And for really thick stems, then a pruning saw. And pruning saws are different from woodworking saws, which cut on the push stroke, because pruning saws cut on the pull stroke. So with those 3 in your armoury, you're well equipped to prune almost anything. The first thing to consider is why you're pruning something. There are several reasons. One is to produce an appealing shape. Another is to get rid of pests and diseases. Yet another is to encourage flowering and fruiting, particularly in the case of fruit trees. Now, here's a tree that's been well pruned over the years. It's an apple. It's got a good, well-spaced framework of mature branches which will allow a good through flow of air to keep it healthy and to discourage fungus diseases like mildew, which thrive in stagnant air. The time to prune apple trees, and most fruit trees, not all but most, apples and pears certainly, is in winter when they're dormant. Now, these buds haven't yet broken, they haven't yet started to emerge, it's still dormant, just time still to prune it. What are you trying to encourage? Flowers and fruit, and they occur on things called fruiting spurs. And here's a classic. This is a fruiting spur. It's a little tiny bud sticking out, but it's fat. It's got blossom in it. You'll see others here. This is where you're going to get your blossom and then your fruit. You're not going to get anything like that from stems like these, which have tiny weeny buds on, barely visible. They're just going to produce leaves, and these are the ones you can cut back, and you can reduce them by at least a half, not least because you're keeping that canopy thinner, allowing the air circulation, keeping your fruiting buds, but getting rid of those that are just going to produce foliage. Now, this tree has a really well-spaced framework of branches. If there was some running in and crossing the centre, I'd take those out completely, either with the loppers or with the saw, and that way you'll have lots of lip-smacking fruit in summer and autumn, provided it's pollinated well. So you always pray for good weather when the blossom comes out. Now, you may be tempted on a tree like this to really prune it severely, to hack it back. Don't be so aggressive with your fruit trees. Shorten the long ones at the end, but preserve those little stubby bits that go all the way up the branches, because they will produce your crop. The problem with pruning, particularly with trees, is there's no one technique that suits them all, nor even a time of year. With birch trees, for instance, any pruning you need to do there must be done between November and January. Some trees you can prune at any time of year. This is the maidenhair tree, Ginkgo biloba. They tell us it was here when dinosaurs were roaming the land. It's an elegant tree with these wonderful lateral branches, but down here it's got these three stems coming out which are just cluttering up the centre of the tree. So I'm finding a spot where I can get right through it and it should fall away. Oh well, look at that. You can see that whole clutter of branches has been removed. Now I'll also take off these tiny little ones down here. And you now have a tree which displays its elegant, almost tiered wedding cake appearance. When it comes to shrubs, those that flower in spring are generally pruned immediately after flowering. Those that flower later in the year in summer, you prune in winter, because most of those summer flowers will flower on wood that's grown up through that summer. But the most popular shrub in any garden is the rose, and the time to prune roses is between January and March. I'm just catching this one on the very end of the sort of winter, early spring pruning season because it's already beginning to grow. But this is a classic example of a rose, a shrub rose, that hasn't been pruned enough in previous years because it's now full of lots of old stems, crossing stems, weak, dead, diseased. It needs thinning out. So, first of all, anything dead. This bit down here, dark brown, brittle, it's coming up through the centre. That's not going to do anything, so that's out for a start. I'm now looking for things which are old and gnarled and crossing the centre. It's always a case of taking your time, seeing where it's coming from, where it's going to, and if there's anything else to replace it. Because once you've got it off, you can't stick it back on again. The difference between dead stems and old stems, dead has no living wood on it at all. A lot of these older stems have got green young ones coming out the top, but there's still too many of them, and I need to reduce the numbers. What's that one doing? I think he can come out. Now you can see there's quite a lot of green on that, but a lot of old and a lot of cluttered and generally overcrowded. Shrub roses, which is what these are, you do not cut right down to knee height, which is what you do with bush roses, hybrid teas and floribundas, the big fat cabbages. These tend to be taller, so you tip them back and thin the framework out, which is what I'm doing now. See, there's some lovely growth here. That's really young. That's flimsy. That can go back to there. Shorten that back a bit. And all these buds here should produce flowers. So there we are. I've created a well-spaced branch framework which allows a through flow of air, so mildew and black spot will be less likely because of the air circulation. All this bush now is full of vigour. A good feed now with blood, fish and bone, and your rose bush, your shrub, is set up for the summer. Sometimes you can have a bit of fun with shrub pruning, but fun with practical benefits. This is a Viburnum tinus, common name Lotus tinus. It's quite a big bulky shrub and nothing much will grow underneath it. But if I lift the crown, I can produce a sort of lollipop like that one over there. So, armed with my trusty saw of loppers and secateurs, I'm going to have a go. Wish me luck. Oh. David Attenborough never has this trouble. So I'm beginning to let light through the bottom now, and I'm going to gradually work my way up, taking off more of these lower ones here. And it then starts to become a bit more picturesque. There we are, all done. And that's rather fun. And look at the amount of extra ground I've got that I can now plant up, which has got sunlight coming onto it. Extra bit of garden. Just outside the cottage here in our new garden is this long terrace. It's a sun trap. It faces south, and what I want to try and do at this end is to create an outdoor open garden room. Bit of work to do though. Now, stone terraces are lovely, but they do get green slime on them, which makes them really quite dangerous. So the first thing to do is to clean this. It will look quite pristine, but it will be so much easier to walk on. Needs a bit of pressure washing. I've got my pressure washer here with the correct nozzle attached, and I'm going to work my way right across the patio. The distance that you hold the nozzle from the paving affects just how much you're taking off. The closer you get, the more will come off, the cleaner it will be. Try to avoid putting the pressure washer directly onto the pointing between, because it'll pull that out as well. And don't even think about doing delicate things like your statues. They're lovely with a bit of patina on them. One blast of this, they'd lose their wings. So the patio has been pressure washed. I now need to create my low walls to make the room, and with small areas always go for a smaller number of large containers rather than a small number of little ones, because it makes it look spotty, and in summer it's a real pain to have to water them all because they dry out so quickly. So I've chosen 4 troughs of preserved timber that I'm painting on the outside, lining them with this so that the compost doesn't fall through the holes. And if you fix the edges in before you put the coping on, it's a much neater finish. Right. Got my liner in, got the coping on and fixed firmly so that liner is sandwiched, and then I'm going to paint the top to match the sides. These were all a natural timber colour before I painted them. Choose something that appeals to you but which will complement the plants that are going in it rather than fight with them or attract all the attention. I love these soft, rather modern tones, and the one I've chosen is called Warm Clay. The lovely thing about this particular colour is that it will go with any kind of planting scheme. It's really complementary to bright, vivid reds, oranges and yellows, and particularly to soft pinks and pale blues. Don't stint on the quality of the paint you buy. What's cheap is dear. If it's cheap, you'll have to do it again. And with a good quality paint, it will last lots longer. If you put your troughs on casters, they're easy to move around, and you can change the position of them to suit what you're doing. I'm going to turn these into room dividers. So you can see now, these are my low walls that have created the outdoor garden room. And then in a while I can get a table in here, chairs or benches either side, and it becomes a breakfast room. But as it's spring, I think we need a bit of colour. Although these are acting as walls in the summer, I thought what I'd do is turn one of them into a gigantic window box in front of this little window for spring, filling it up with this tub and basket compost, which is ideal for containers where the root run is limited. So I'm leaving it down there 2 or 3 inches, and then I'll start putting my plants in. I've got some largish ones here. There's a rhododendron there, lovely pink flowered rhododendron. They like ericaceous, lime-free compost. This isn't an ericaceous mix, but in here I really want to do plenty of spring flowers. This is such a pretty euphorbia, a spurge with variegated leaves and these little green flowers that always remind me of frog spawn because they've got that little dark brown blob in the middle. Make sure whenever you're planting anything that you've watered them really well before you plant, and don't worry that the roots are out the bottom and you're having to tear them. So that's tallish, and I want another tall plant to go next door to it here. This lovely erysimum, a kind of perennial wallflower, lovely purpley colour, which will go very nicely with that. And this one's called Erysimum Poem Lavender. I rather like the lime green and the sort of lavender purple together. When you're planting for spring, there's no need to leave a load of room around them all. You want it to look fairly complete when you've finished it. Now then, plants along the front here, I simply love little old butterfly blue scabious, and these flowers here, you can see how many are coming, loads of them still to come. I reckon I can fit a couple in there. In this corner here, a saxifrage, a mossy saxifrage, mossy foliage and lovely pink flowers. A little paler saxifrage behind the pink one. Trailing over the front, my favourite variegated ivy. In the back corner on the left hand side there, 2 polyanthus. And for a bit of colour and aroma at the front, a yellow variegated thyme. And finally, a bit of fluff. I do like a bit of fluff. Stipa tenuissima, lovely ponytail grass. To fill in this back bit here and flop over the front. There you have it, a gorgeous spring container. Give it a good watering in. When you're watering, get your hose right down among them. You don't want to be watering up here somewhere because it just weighs the flowers down. The water needs to be around the roots, and that is where I'm putting it. A really good soak. So there we are. we have something pretty to see from the window of the house. Join me for a forthcoming video when I'll be filling this space with summer colour and much more besides. So this is our new small veg patch. Little picket fence around it. There are 6 raised beds here, about 4 feet by 8 feet. That's 1.25 by 2.5 metres in new money. And the thing about raised beds is you don't have to bend down quite so low, but also if you've got rubbish soil, you can fill these with glorious loam, enrich it with well-rotted garden compost and manure. The beds are constructed from treated timber with stout posts in the corners and halfway along the sides to stop them bulging. They're about a foot high. They can be higher still if you want. You can use old railway sleepers or even new railway sleepers to make really solid sides. But either way, whether they're thick and long-lasting or thinner and not quite so durable, they're very, very workable. They were filled with pretty decent soil already, but any organic content in earth dissipates over the course of the season. It rots down. So I've added some organic soil enrichment to both beds here. This one, I found a couple of bags of topsoil, so I put that on there. The thing about organic matter is that all plants benefit from it, and in raised beds that dry out more rapidly, the organic matter holds on to moisture for longer. You'll hear stories like, don't put much organic matter in where you're growing carrots because it makes the roots fork. I've never planted carrots or sown carrots in soil that's so organic it's caused them to fork. Frankly, the forking's caused by stones when they hit a stone and they go that way. So generally speaking, a fair helping of organic matter, whatever the crop you're going to grow, is a good idea. This year, I'm going to concentrate on these two. In this one, I'm going to plant seed potatoes, new potatoes, the first earlies. And then in this bed here, salad crops, lettuces, some carrots, and we'll see how we progress, just taking things a bit at a time. Now, seed potatoes are a cut above your average spud because they've been grown usually in the north of Scotland, places like that, and kept virus-free. So you'll buy them like this. It'll say on them very early variety or first early, and that just means they mature faster than the main crop varieties, which take several weeks longer and which store through the winter if you keep them cold and dark. But these come in a bag like this, and you'll see that one end of the potato in particular has little sprouts on it. This is called the eye end. They're always called eyes, you know, the bits on potato, and they're starting to sprout already. If you take these and stack them in egg trays like this, because then in a bright windowsill you'll get these little sprouts to grow, and when they're grown about ½ an inch or so, it means that you can plant them and they'll just mature that little bit faster. What you can also do, if funds are short, and you really mean, is you can plant a small potato like that, but if you get bigger ones, you can cut them in half and plant 2 halves of a potato, each with some sprouts on. So you plant your spuds in rows, and as the shoots grow and come up above the ground, you earth them up, you pull soil around them for 2 reasons. One, to protect those shoots which are coming up when frosts are still around, and the soil will protect the tender shoots from frost, but also it will make sure that the potatoes that are forming on roots that come out of those spuds you're planting, the potatoes that form there will be kept in the dark. So garden line, ball of string and 2 canes. Stretch the garden line taut across the bed like that, and that marks your row. And you can see now that I'm going to take out a little trench here, and then when I've planted them again, I'll be pulling up the soil either side, so you can work out just how far apart you need your rows to be. So using my spade, I'm digging a trench alongside that garden line there, about 6 inches, about 15 centimetres deep. Putting the soil at either side of the trench so it's there waiting when I want to put it back. In the bottom of the trench, just to give these seed potatoes a head start, I'm putting some multi-purpose peat-free compost. Just make sure they get sent on their way. Then I space the seed potatoes between 9 inches and a foot apart. I've marked it with the variety Charlotte, one of my favourite early potatoes. Then use the spade, pull the earth back on both sides. And the next row, about 45 centimetres, foot and a half from the first one. And I shall do exactly the same there. From seed potatoes to seeds proper. I've bought my seeds this year from a trusted online supplier, and I've already started off some annuals in the greenhouse that will be able to fill gaps in the flower beds. They do come in these hermetically sealed packets. That's important. They're airtight and fresh. They'll have been kept at very low temperatures, so viability is high. I'm going to be sowing here some lettuces, some carrots, some beetroots, and now as a demo, lettuce Little Gem, still one of my favourites, an old timer, and you'll get here packed March 2026. So by March 2028, so they reckon 2 years of viability. How do you sow them? Nothing could be easier. You don't even need a line on the raised bed. All you need is a garden cane cut to the right width. So pressing the cane into the surface and then sowing the seeds thinly. What's thinly? Well, so that they rest perhaps ½ an inch apart, and then you can thin them out later if they all grow. But just use your fingers, rather like salt on your fish and chips as we used to do before they had shakers, right the way along the drill, and then with your finger and thumb flicking back the earth just to cover it. Not too much, just enough. Your second row can be about a foot away from your first. Exactly the same technique. Cane in, seed sown, flicked back and marked. Now you can water the bottom of the drill before you sow the seeds, but I always like to water them in after I've sowed them. Really fine mist like this over the rows. Be patient, do it slowly, watch it soak in. And I knew that the ground underneath was moist already, so this is just adding additional moisture to go down and join that underlayer, if you like, and get the seeds to germinate. Seeds are remarkably tough, you know. They last sometimes for hundreds of years. They found wheat seeds in Pharaoh's tombs that would germinate. Now, the lovely thing about growing veg in raised beds, apart from the fact that it works and it's convenient, is that it looks so nice. Well, it does when you've got nice paths. So this old membrane here, which is falling to bits, needs to be replaced. And then I can cover it, because it's helping to keep down weeds, with something a bit better to look at. I'm taking up the old weed-proof membrane and replacing it with new, just to make sure it doesn't move. I'm fastening it down with these metal hairpins. I'm then adding a 2 to 3 inch layer of wood chip, which will last for a good few years, a bit longer than bark. So there we are. As well as being practical, the membrane will keep down the weeds. This looks good. The entire kitchen garden is ready for the summer ahead. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, click below. It's going to be a fantastic year in our new garden with tips and inspiration, so why not join us?